Today, we're going to dive into a single, powerful teaching from the Prophet Muhammad that really tries to tackle some of life's biggest questions. You know, the big ones. Where do we come from? What actually makes us human? And maybe the biggest of all, how much of our story is already written for us? This is all wrapped up in the famous Hadith of Ibn Mas'ud, a teaching that maps our entire existence, right from a tiny cell in the womb to our final, unchangeable destiny. What I find so fascinating is how the person telling this story, the narrator, starts it off. He doesn't just jump into the quote. First, he describes the prophet as the truthful, the believed one. Now, this isn't just flowery praise. It's a signal. He's basically telling us, hey, listen up. We're about to go into the realm of the unseen. You know, things like the soul, divine will, stuff that science just can't measure. This is a journey that goes way beyond our physical senses. And this isn't some obscure, little-known teaching either. It's actually the fourth hadith in the super famous collection Al-Nawawi's 40 Hadith, which is like a cornerstone of Islamic learning. And its authenticity? It's rock solid. You'll find it in the most reliable collections, Bukhari and Muslim. So what we're looking at is a truly foundational text that has shaped Islamic thought for centuries. Okay, so the hadith begins by pulling back the curtain on our very first moments of life. It lays out this incredibly precise, almost clockwork-like process of how we're formed physically. It describes a journey that takes exactly 120 days inside the mother's womb. 120 days, 4 months, and this number is not random at all. It's presented as a really critical threshold. It marks the moment our physical blueprint is basically complete. You could say it's the point where the vessel is finally ready for this huge spiritual transformation happen. So how does this 120-day journey actually play out? Well, a hadith breaks it down beautifully into 3 distinct equal stages, and each one lasts exactly 40 days. Let's take a quick look at what happens in each one. For the first 40 days, it's what's called a nutfa, basically a tiny drop. Then, for the next 40 days, it changes into an alaka, which is described as a clinging clot of blood. And for the final 40 days of this period, it becomes a mudga, a chewed-like lump of flesh. And boom, at the end of these 120 days, the physical body is complete. So, the body is formed. But now, the story takes a huge turn. The journey shifts from the physical to the metaphysical. We move from just the creation of a body to the breathing of a soul and the writing of destiny itself. And this brings us to a really fundamental question, right? We have this perfectly formed body, this lump of flesh built over 120 days. But that's all it is, flesh and bone. What gives it life? What's the spark that turns this biological machine into a living, feeling human being with a totally unique identity? The hadith gives a pretty stunning answer. It says that right at that 120-day mark, an angel is sent with one single divine command to breathe the soul, the ruh, into this body. This is the exact moment, according to this teaching, that it becomes a living human being. But the angel's job isn't done. At this very same moment of ensoulment, the angel is told to write down 4 fundamental things that will define this new life. It's essentially the blueprint for our entire story. Our provision, and that's not just food and water, but also things like faith and knowledge. Our exact lifespan, right down to the second. All of our deeds, good and bad. And finally, our ultimate end, whether we're destined for a blessed life or a wretched one. Now we get to the most challenging and, honestly, maybe the most profound part of this hadith. It's this idea that what truly matters isn't how you run the race, but how you cross the finish line. It's all about your final deeds. And get this. To really hammer home how serious this next point is, the prophet swore an oath, the most serious oath anyone can take. He's telling his companions, and all of us, that what he's about to say is an absolute, undeniable certainty. And this slide really shows the shocking paradox he reveals. Picture this. A person does the deeds of the people of paradise their entire life. They're just an arm's length away from it. But then, the written decree, what was written by the angel, overtakes them. They do one final act of evil, and they enter hell. And the exact opposite is also true. A person can live a lifetime of evil, but then get saved by a single, sincere act of good at the very end and enter paradise. I mean, that's pretty startling, right? It immediately makes you ask, how is that fair? Does this mean a whole lifetime of trying to do good could just be worthless? Can one bad moment really erase decades of good deeds? Well, the hadith itself, in another version, actually gives us the subtle but powerful key to unlocking this whole paradox. It includes one tiny but crucial clarifying phrase. The person was doing the deeds of the people of paradise, as it appears to people. Ah, see? That changes everything. The deeds only looked good on the outside. They were missing true sincerity on the inside. So this isn't a story about God abandoning a good person at the last minute. No, it's a huge warning against hypocrisy. And at the same time, it's a reassurance that God would never, ever forsake a soul that was genuinely and consistently trying for his sake. Sincerity, that's the currency that truly matters. So this idea of when life truly begins, not just as flesh and blood, but as a soul, isn't just some abstract theological concept. It has direct, real-world ethical implications, especially when you get into the very complex issue of abortion in Islamic law. The ruling is derived directly from the timeline we've just been talking about. Because the soul is believed to enter the body after 120 days, Islamic law generally considers abortion after this point to be forbidden. Why? Because the fetus is no longer just a developing body. It has become a human soul. And to really underscore this point, if a fetus passes away after that 120-day mark, it's given the full rights of a deceased human. It's washed, shrouded, prayed for, and given a proper burial. Its humanity is completely and fully recognized. And so that brings us right back to where we started, with this profound tension that sits at the heart of the Hadith. It leaves us with a timeless question to think about. How do we live our lives with full effort, striving, and working hard, while at the same time holding this firm belief that our provision, our lifespan, our deeds, and even our final destination have already been written? Finding that balance? Well, that's the lifelong journey of faith itself.